السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. ثم أما بعد. We'll start inshallah. Ask the Imam session number 3, and I have a few questions here from Brother Muiz. When does Tahajjud time end? Tahajjud time ends with Fajr. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would pray, and then Bilal radiallahu anhu would come and ask him permission to give the adhan for Fajr, and then he gives him that permission. Then Bilal makes the adhan, and he sallallahu alaihi wasallam would pray 2 rak'ah as nafil before Fajr, and then he would go out to lead the Fajr prayer. So Tahajjud, like Qiyamul Layl, it ends with Salatul Fajr. How does a new enter into Islam know difference between Hanafi, Shafi'i, and other sects? Well, Hanafi and Shafi'i and Hanbali and Maliki are not sects. That's important to clarify this terminology. Hanafi, Maliki, and Shafi'i and Hanbali, they are not sects. They are schools of thought within, or madhahib within, Islamic law. Right? There are schools of thought when it comes to Islamic theology, like Maturidiyya and Ash'ariyya and Ahlul Hadith. But when it comes to fiqh or Islamic law, there are plenty of madhahib, but these 4 particularly became so famous because they have so many followers, and they became established schools of thought. So they all rely on the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ to make laws based on the general principles in the Quran and the Sunnah. So a newcomer to Islam, he or she does not really need to know so much about madhahib. If a Muslim is born and died without knowing anything about these madhahib, he or she will be fine. Only those who intend to study Islamic law, then they have to choose one of these schools of thought to study Islamic law based on its methodology. So if you want to be a faqih or imam or scholar, then you have to study fiqh. So to study fiqh, then you need to study fiqh based on Imam Abu Hanifa, or based on Imam Shafi'i, or Imam Malik, or Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. But if you are a layman, you are not a specialist, then you don't really have to know to study so much about these madhahib. Your madhab will be the madhab of your mufti, because we cannot basically just go to the Quran and read the Quran and find out the rules, what Allah says when it comes to wudu or prayer, or how to fast and how to make hajj and so on, what's halal and what's haram. Sometimes it is simple, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it clear that drinking alcohol is haram. So it's clear. But in most of the time, we cannot by ourselves go to the Quran and read Al-Bukhari and Muslim and these are Quran and the Sunnah. But we cannot, because we are not equipped, we are not specialists. We cannot just do that. We need to rely on scholars who came before us, who studied the Arabic language, and they studied the text and the context, and then they give us their opinion. So it's like medicine. Think of it like medicine. Can you, if you got a sickness, then would you go and read all the references in medicine to find out how to treat this particular health situation? We don't do that. What do? We go to the specialists. We go to a doctor who supposedly studied and certified physician, and then he or she will give us medication and or suggest surgery and so on. So similarly, we cannot by ourselves go to the Quran and read Al-Bukhari and Muslim and Tirmidhi and Nasa'i, Ibn Majah, and read the books of tafsir and then come up with halal and haram. We cannot do that, because halal and haram is not an easy business. It's very complex business. So we need to ask the specialist, and all these specialists belong to one of these four schools of thought. If you ask a scholar who is trained based on Imam Malik, then he'll give you fatwa based on the method of Imam Malik in giving fatwa. If you ask an Imam who is Shafi'i, then he will give you fatwa based on the Shafi'i madhab, and so on and so forth. So for a layman, people are not specialists in Islamic law, then they don't have to follow any particular madhab. Their madhab is the madhab of their mufti. You trust someone's knowledge and deen, then you ask him, what does Allah want me to do? Then he will tell you, do this or do that, or it's halal or it's haram. Then you don't ask him, what's your madhab, by the way, and which madhab you are following, and you are giving me fatwa based on what madhab. You don't want to get into this business. You ask a mufti, take the fatwa, and follow. If you have two fatwas, one say halal and other say haram, follow either of them, you'll be fine. But for those who are new to Islam, they don't really have to follow any madhab. Because they're not specialists and they're not planning to be imams or scholars. Surah Al-Mu'minun, verse number 3, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ, who avoid vain talk. Please comment on what would classify under vain talk. Vain talks are either those talks that's haram. Because Imam al-Ghazali classified our talk, anything we say, into four categories. One is the absolutely harmful and haram talk, like lying and giving false statements, backbiting, and so on. That's purely haram. And what is purely halal, like reading Quran, giving khutbahs or lectures, or enjoining good and forbidding evil, that's purely halal. And he talked about also the talk that mixed with halal and haram, good and bad, right? And sometimes the bad is much greater than the good, or the good is greater than the bad. So he said in three of these categories, we need to just remain silent. It's better not speak. What is purely haram and what is mixed with halal and haram are mixed together, whether the halal is more than the haram or the haram is more than the halal. So al-laghu, that includes any activities or talks that harmful or useless. Harmful is absolutely haram. Useless is not necessarily haram, but it is someone who has exam and he's just watching movies. You have an important exam you have to take, you have to prepare yourself, you have to study hard, but rather he decided just to go and watch movies. So watching movies then is vain talk or laghu, as the Quran says, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ. The ayah that you call it here talks about laghu. Al-laghu is anything that is either harmful or useless. Our scholars did not like actually talking so much about so many things that has no use. So al-laghu is either what is haram or vain talk or foul talk, or it is haram and halal mixed together. Wallahu a'lam. The brother Amr is asking about so in the life insurance concept in Islam, is it permissible to take life insurance while living in non-Islamic state? Life insurance, the mass majority of the scholars say it's haram. Some modern scholars, big names, they consider it halal. In fact, the muftis of Egypt, or the Darul Ifta in Egypt, they consider it halal. Those who say life insurance is haram is because the concept of gharar. Gharar means that unknown. The Prophet ﷺ prohibited us to sell or buy something that's not well defined. Right? So it's called gharar. Gharar means there's ignorance. We don't know how much money I will pay and how much money I will service or goods I will take. All right? So because the one who buys life insurance, he does not know how much he will pay and how much he will gain and when. So there is unknown factors here. So because of that, they consider it haram, and also because um, um, it includes some sort of gambling, like you don't, because you may put some money, and that's what gambling is. You put little money and get more, and everybody, when they sign the contract of life insurance, they hope that they will pay less and they get more. So, and because of this gambling issue, and the third, because of riba, because riba means that you pay some money and you get this money and more, and that's what life insurance is. If it's all about saving money, the insurance company does not just save money for you. You pay monthly payments, and they save this money for you and give it to you when you die, or your inheritors. And that's not the intention. The intention is to give some money, and then you get much more than this. And this is, according to them, is riba. So this big name, the majority of the modern scholars, they consider the contract itself is un-Islamic. Those who say it's halal, they said, when it comes to gharar, or ignorance of how much you pay and how much you get and when, that can be forgiven in some cases. Let me give you an example of al-gharar. Al-gharar is, you say for someone, give me $100, I'm going to go for fishing. And whatever I fish, I will give it to you. All right. So you pay $100, but you don't know. You may get one fish, maybe 100, maybe 50, maybe nothing. So this is called gharar. And what happened as a result of that? Animosity and hatred and fighting will happen, because the one who paid $100 will get nothing. That's not fair from his perspective. So the Prophet ﷺ prohibited us from buying or selling anything that includes gharar, or ignorance, or jahala. So you need to know how much you pay and what exactly you're gonna get. You're gonna buy this phone or this computer for $1,000. So you pay $1,000 and you get this computer, right? So the buyer knows exactly what he's buying, and the seller knows exactly how much he will get. But in some cases, the ulama said al-gharar can be forgiven sometimes, because it's unavoidable. So, for example, if you buy a watermelon, okay, this watermelon could be the most delicious one, or could be terrible from inside. You don't know. So there's some sort of gharar. Another example, the use of al-hammam, the public bathroom. Like if you went to Turkey or Istanbul, you know the Turkish hammam. You pay a certain amount of money, you go inside, you use amount of water, and you use soap and shampoos and stuff like this. How much exactly you're going to use is not known, right? Another actually modern example are the open buffet restaurants, all what you can eat. So you pay, let's say, $15, and you go inside and you eat as much as you want. You may eat so little, and you may eat so much. So there is some sort of jahala, unknown amount of food that you're going to consume. You know exactly how much. So the seller knows exactly how much money he will get, like say $15, but he does not know how much he will offer, because the customer could have a small stomach and eat little, or big stomach and eat so much. So the ulama said sometimes al-gharar could be forgiven in some cases. So gharar is not a good reason to make a life insurance contract haram, right? Yes, you don't know how much you'll pay, because you can die in 1 year or 20 or 30 years, God knows. So you may keep paying and get less than what you paid, or you pay so little, and then you die, then the insurance company will pay so much in return. So the gharar here could be forgiven, because it is part of the deal. As for riba, they said there's no riba, because riba is to give a certain amount, or take certain amount of money with a specific amount of interest, like fixed rates, as they say. So 10% or 15%. But in this case, we don't know how much you're going to get. And additionally, they said it's halal, because both sides, there's no cheating or hiding or misleading. All information are available. You're going to pay this amount. And in the case of death, your children, your family are going to get this amount. So both, there's no compulsion, there's no deception. Everything is known, and you have the right to read the contract, and you go willingly into it. Um, additionally, additionally, that could be also related to the Muslims who live in the West. Um, if the father or the husband is the only money maker, the wife does not work, does not know how to work, kids are still young. In this case, if God forbid the father died, who's going to take care of the family? Of course, Allah takes care of everybody, but we have to take the asbab, and we have to do what we can to protect our families. So we don't want our families to go and beg people and expect sadaqah from people. Unfortunately, I've seen this case, many cases, and when the husband all of a sudden died, accident or something like this, and the family is left alone. Wife cannot work, kids are young. What would they do? Don't expect the community to take care of this family. Nobody will takes care of nobody. I mean, it's very rare. Um, Very, because we cannot rely on this. So I am more inclined to the opinion that says life insurance is not haram, because two opinions. One group of scholars said it's haram, others said it's halal. And looking at the reality, I think it is not haram because, again, if God forbid the husband died, or he's the only one who makes money, then the family will suffer the loss of the father or the husband, and they may not be able to pay for their mortgage. Then they lose their home, and then they will lose their living, they lose their health insurance, and they will be in a miserable situation. So I personally am inclined to the opinion that says it's not haram. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Mhm. Um, we answered this already. Um, and there's a brother who saw a dream, so inshallah I can contact you because this is kind of personal. So Sister Horia is asking whether possible in Islam to create haram income sources for fulfillment of extra luxury. No. Haram, create haram income sources is haram, basically. For maintain social status or show off they are wealthy even though they are having halal income. No. Yeah, I understand the question that basically making haram money is haram, period. And unfortunately, some who are already doing well, but because of their greed, they want to have more. They want to have more money, so they start investing their money in haram activities. And absolutely, this is haram, especially it's luxury or for maintain social status or show off they are wealthy. No. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Kullu jismin nabata min suhtin fannar awla bihi." If you nurture your body, you eat from haram, and you nurture your body from haram, then the fire will be your abode. So we should not actually take it lightly. What we eat is very important, and sometimes people take it very lightly. The Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one day he saw one of his grandchildren, Hassan or Hussein, eating from the date of sadaqah, when they collect the date as sadaqah. And so this child, 2 years old, he picked one of these dates and he put it in his mouth, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam put his finger in his grandson's mouth, and he brought it out, and he told him that, don't you know that we don't eat sadaqah? Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu used to ask before he eats where this food is coming from. So we should not actually take it lightly that we just take things from haram and nurture our body and feed our children from haram. we should observe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not just people. I've seen people who are not doing very well, and they resort to fraud activities and haram activities just to look like wealthy, and because the social pressure, they want to look wealthy and respected by the community because the kind of car they drive and the size of the house they live in. So the answer is of course absolutely it's haram. That's not a justification for this. What if you miss the prayer? Okay, so if you are asleep, and you miss the prayer or you forgot, sometimes it happens that you think you prayed Isha, and then you figure out that you not pray. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us, "Man nama an salatin aw nasiyaha falyusalliha idha dhakaraha, laysa la kafaratun illa dhalik." If you were asleep and you missed the prayer, or you missed the prayer as a result of forgetfulness, then once you remember it, then you should perform it, and that will be the time for you. And there is a nice mas'ala actually came out when the ulama discussed the idea. If someone, for example, woke up as junub, so he woke up, let's say 5 minutes before the sunrise, so I have only 5 minutes to pray, and he was junub, which means that he or she needs to take shower. But if he or she took shower, then they will miss the prayer time. The sun will rise. So should they make tayammum, put their hand on the dust and just wipe on their face and their hands quickly, and then pray on time? Or they take shower, and as a result, they will pray morning prayer after the sunrise? Which of the two is the right way to do it? Some ulama said, no, praying on time is more important than taking a shower. So if you make tayammum, that will be enough as tahara, and then you pray on time. Others, which is the opinion of Ibn Taymiyyah, which I think makes a lot of sense, he said no, he should take shower and pray even if after the sunrise. Why? Because he said this will be the prayer time for him. So if you are awake, when the dhuhr time comes, that's the beginning of the time. And when asr time comes, that's the end of dhuhr time and the beginning of asr time. So if you are awake, this is the prayer time, the dhuhr time for you. All right. But if you're asleep and you woke up after asr, you don't pray dhuhr, but you woke up after asr, the prayer time for you is to pray it after asr, to pray dhuhr after asr. I hope this point is clear. Similarly, if you, let's say you prayed asr and before maghrib you went to sleep and you woke up after isha, maghrib time for you is after isha, once you woke up and you remember the prayer. So in regular situation, the prayer time is known. But in this kind of situation, when you are asleep or you forgot your prayer, then when you remember it, that is the time for you to perform this salah. So you woke up after Isha, you don't pray Maghrib. So what should you do? You pray Maghrib first and then pray Isha. What if you entered the masjid, you went to the masjid and you arrived and the Jama'ah is praying Isha and you not pray Maghrib? Then join the Jama'ah, pray Isha with the Jama'ah, and then you pray Maghrib after, because you forgot it, because you missed already the time. So join the Jama'ah, pray Isha with the Jama'ah, and then after that you pray Maghrib because you forgot it. Can I forget even if I remember in a makruh time? So let's say you went to sleep at night and you missed the Isha prayer. You woke up at Fajr or morning time and you prayed Fajr. And you remembered after the sunrise that you did not pray Isha last night. You pray it immediately. Yes, you pray Isha at 9 a.m. If you remember Isha at 9 a.m., then you pray at 9 a.m. You remember that you did not pray Isha in the makruh time between Fajr and sunrise, you still need to pray once you remember it at any time. So the salah between Asr and Maghrib and the salah between Fajr and sunrise is prohibited, but if you forgot a fard salah, then you have to fulfill it at any time. once you remember it. Right? Once you remember it. All right? Salat al-Witr is wajib only in the Hanafi madhab, but in other madhab it's not wajib. Meaning that if you miss Salat al-Witr, there's nothing you need to do, because it is not a wajib, it's not a fard, according to the vast majority of the scholars. But we should not miss Salat al-Witr. If you missed it, then there's nothing wrong. Same thing to do with Sajda Tilawa. Sajda Tilawa, when you read Sajda or you hear Sajda Tilawa, you have the option to make sujood or not, because it's not a must, not a wajib, it's not a fard. Umar ibn Khattab anhu recited an ayah of Sajda and he did not make sujood, just to show people that it is not a sin not to make Sajda. It's sunnah to make the Sajda, but it's not a must. Okay, so I remember sometimes when in a lecture and I quote an ayah of Sajda and people, what should we do now? You just relax. You don't have to make sujood every time you hear the ayah. It's recommended. And sometimes when you go to a madrasa and the kids are reciting to the sheikh and they recite Sajda Tilawa many times, and it will be difficult to make sujood every time a child or a student recites an ayah and everybody has to go and make sujood. So Sajda Tilawa, it is sunnah to make it whether you're praying or out of the prayer, if you hear it or you recite it, but it's not a must. It's not haram not to make the sajda. And these are the questions I have for today. Reminder, tonight, inshallah, the first odd number night, it could be Laylatul Qadr. So inshallah, we'll start the Tahajjud prayer at 2:30 a.m. So inshallah, we'll broadcast it if you want to join us. And also, the Isha or the Taraweeh broadcast, inshallah, starting tonight, will be at 10:30, because the time is changing. So inshallah, we'll pray Taraweeh inshallah at 10:30 starting tonight, inshallah, subhanahu wa ta'ala. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد ان لا اله الا انت نستغفرك ونتوب اليك. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى اله واصحابه اجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمه الله وبركاته.